Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 59 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, what is going on today, brother?
What is happening, huh? It's a little chilly outside.
A little cold.
Yeah.
For March. It's BS, if you ask me.
I know it, but it is what it is. Just threw on a shirt and kept myself warm.
I know you're ready to get into spring, summer where you can really go around full Gibby.
That's right. Full Gibby.
It's kind of like full Monty.
Yeah.
But just the upper half.
Just the upper, yeah.
You ever seen full Monty?
I have.
It's called full Gibby.
Full Gibby. So, yeah, man, we got to spring forward this weekend, too.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So, we're going to lose that hour.
I much prefer falling back.
Going to be grumpier because we all lose an hour of sleep. I don't get enough sleep as it is.
Yeah, me neither.
So I'm going to lose that extra hour somewhere along the line here this next couple of days.
All right, Gibbs, we have a bunch of new Patreon supporters, so let's give some shout-outs. We had Claudia Veach.
Veach.
Jumped out at our highest level.
Thank you, Veach.
Pamela Coburn.
Yeah.
Who is already a Patreon supporter. She just upped hers to the highest level, so she gets a gold star shout-out.
Thank you, PC.
PC. Jan Bornhauser.
She was a Bornhauser.
Jeff Holt.
Yeah.
Sheila Perrault. Tina Coughlin. Mark McKinnon.
Hey, thanks, Mark.
Kimberly Pavoni.
I like that. Pavoni.
Or Pavone. I'm not sure.
I think it's Pavoni.
I like to say it that way because I like to hear your voice.
Yeah.
Or your accent. Sean Tomlinson.
Thank you.
Ken Fernandez.
Hey, Ken.
Allison Roma.
I like that Roma.
Mercedes Ferguson.
That's big time right there, man.
You got to watch those Fergusons.
I know it. Probably related somehow down the line.
Probably. But Mercedes.
I know it.
Sounds very expensive.
It does. It's like Mercedes, and you got Porsche Ferguson around the corner.
Yeah, you know those Fergusons.
I know.
Then me, I'm kind of more of a truck guy.
You are a truck guy. And a Harley.
And a Harley.
Yeah, you wild hog you.
I did buy a Harley.
I know it.
It's 24 degrees today, so I can't ride it.
You could have, but you look like that guy from Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah. Frozen snot.
Snot rolling down my face. And if we go back into the vault, Gibbs.
Do it.
This week we selected Stacey Angel. Been with us a long time Patreon supporter. And not just the length of time, but actually one of our biggest supporters, our biggest donators in the history of the show.
Yeah, thank you, Stacey.
In total support. She's really been an amazing supporter of True Crime All the Time.
Absolutely.
And Unsolved. And then we had a lot of support on PayPal, too. We had Nicole McAnally.
Thank you.
Amanda Foster.
Yes.
Emily Brower.
Awesome.
And Samantha S.
Samantha S. She is a freaking rock star.
She is. Just finds ways to support us.
Yeah.
And if she can't find one, she'll develop one.
She amazing.
Yep. All right. Don't forget about CrimeCon. If you're signing up for your badge online, make sure you use the promo code TCAT.
Double T.
Double T at the end.
I got my room. I don't have to worry about shacking up.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Because you were going to pull that fast one on me and say...
I know. Lost my wallet.
Lost my wallet.
I'm staying with the same hotel you are at that Gaylord Opera House, whatever it's called. I don't remember what it's called.
The Gaylord Fokker Opera House?
Yeah, exactly. That's where I'm at.
All right. It's a cool place.
Yeah, that's what everybody says.
I've been there a couple times.
That'd be cool for what we have to spend per night.
Yeah, it's not a cheap place, but
I hope I get more than one towel.
It is a very nice.
I don't
hotel.
want to keep taking the same towel and hanging it up to dry so I can use it again.
Well, you're going to steal them anyway. That's what you always do.
Gonna get my money's worth.
And the robe and
that's right.
The TV, the batteries out of the TV remote.
That's a good one there.
The light bulbs out of all the lamps.
Just don't squish my bag down.
See, most people just go soap, shampoo.
I go full out, man.
You go
curtains,
like restocking,
bedspread. It wasn't there when I got there. I don't know what to tell you.
And don't forget about True Crime All the Time.
Yes.
This week we have an episode out right now on Coral Watts. And if you have not heard about Coral Watts, you don't want to miss this one.
Ooh, man.
This guy was the personification of evil.
Stop now. Think about it. Continue this one, then jump over there afterwards.
Stop now. Yeah. Write it down.
That's right.
Write it on your hand. No, I mean, he's convicted for a large number of murders.
Yep.
But police think his real number could be as many as 100, which would make him, right up one of the, if not the most prolific serial killer in U.S. history.
Yeah. Bad dude.
Yeah, he was a bad man. And if you haven't checked it out yet, check out my other podcast, Criminology, that I do with Mike Morford. We're doing season 2 right now on the Golden State Killer. And Gibbs, you talk about prolific, evil.
Yeah. Oh, terrible
This
guy, man.
And the fact that they haven't caught him yet.
Yeah.
It boggles. But let's get into this episode of Unsolved.
Let's do it.
We are talking about the 1982 deaths in Chicago that would be known as the Tylenol murders.
Yeah.
Rather reporting a bizarre and terrifying story today in the Chicago suburbs of Arlington Heights and Elk Grove Village. A 12-year-old girl and 2 men who were brothers are dead after taking poison capsules of extra-strength Tylenol.
So anytime you get a chance to hear Dan Rather, you got to take it.
Absolutely.
I miss that dude being on the news.
Him and Walter.
It just seemed like back in the day, you had these like iconic figures on the news. And now I couldn't even tell you. They keep jumping around from
You know who I really miss?
person to person. Who's that?
I miss my newscaster from San Diego.
Ron?
Yeah.
Oh.
I miss Ron Burgundy.
Every now and then you need you a little Ron Burgundy.
Yeah. All his San Diegoans.
Stay classy.
That's what we do.
But you heard Dan kind of preface this, right? We're in the Chicago area. Now, at the time he was reporting that, he's only talking about, a couple of people being dead at that point. That number is going to rise. We got to talk about Tylenol a little bit.
Okay.
Not that anybody listening doesn't know what Tylenol is. I mean, it's kind of a ubiquitous name, brand. And who hasn't taken a Tylenol?
Man, if you've been alive for last 30 plus years, you've had Tylenol sometime.
We're in 1982. Tylenol was the most successful over-the-counter product in the U.S. I mean, there was over 100 million users of this brand. I don't know what it ranks today. Probably got to be right up there.
I would think it'd be in the top performing.
Yeah. Tylenol was made by Johnson & Johnson. That was the parent company. And Tylenol was responsible for 19% of their corporate profits during the first 3 quarters of 82.
That's a big piece of business.
Because that was a huge company and still is today.
Absolutely.
Johnson & Johnson.
Oh.
So to think of one brand making up almost 20% of their profits.
I mean, as a big company, I mean, it's a good thing, but it's also a scary thing, right? You normally want many fishing poles in the water, not just, one big one.
Well, and I think that's why we say it made up that percentage during the first 3 quarters.
Yeah.
Because we know what's going to happen and what a devastating effect it's going to have.
Sure.
It accounted for 13% of the company's year-to-year sales growth and 33% of the company's year-to-year profit growth.
Well, profit growth is what your stockholders are sure looking.
That's where you're really getting into the nuts and bolts. So it was a big player in the painkiller field industry, had a 37% market share. And this is the fact that really got me, Gibbs. It was outselling the next 4 leading painkillers combined. So we're talking about Anacin, Bayer, Bufferin, and Excedrin. This is back in the day.
Yeah.
Those have changed considerably today.
Oh, absolutely. I think back in the day, you take an aspirin, a Bayer aspirin, and then you went to Tylenol. And I mean, now today, you might take a Tylenol or you might take an Advil, or like most people do, you alternate them every so many hours and with your Advil and your Tylenol.
Really? I didn't think you were supposed to do that.
What do you mean you're not supposed to do that?
I thought that was bad.
I do that all the
that was
time.
bad to switch from like acetaminophen over to the other ones.
You just alternate them, man.
All right. Don't be giving advice like that.
I'm not giving any advice. This is like,
hey, this is what Gibby does.
Do. Yeah.
But, today you have Aleve, you have Motrin. There's all kinds of different brands.
Yeah, there's all kind of things out there, sure. You get the stuff you can buy off the corner, too.
The stuff that you buy off the corner?
I don't know. They say it's really good shit.
If Tylenol by itself was its own corporation, it would have been in the top half of the Fortune 500.
I believe that.
That's how big of a deal it was.
It was. I mean, because all the hospitals bought it, right?
Yeah.
That's how big it. I mean, they actually
and they still do
carry. Yeah,
right.
I've been in the hospital when they give you a Tylenol, and one Tylenol on your bill at the end of the stay is like $200. You're like, I could have bought a case at Sam's Club for it,
for a quarter
fraction.
of that.
Yeah.
But it's on September 29th, 1982, that 12-year-old Mary Kellerman died after taking an extra strength Tylenol in her home in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. And this is very close to Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Elk Grove. I don't know, maybe you have too. I mean, it's just it's in Cook County. It's just one of those
suburbs of
the Chicago metro.
There is quite a few of them.
Yeah.
It would be on that same day in Arlington Heights that 27-year-old postal worker Adam Janis died in the hospital after he also took an extra strength Tylenol.
So what's strange about this one is later, Adam's brother Stanley will go to his bedside because Adam just passed. And so Stanley and his wife, when they go visit, they get migraines, and they take a couple Tylenol, extra strength, out of the container that was already open that Adam had used. What they didn't know, what nobody knew at that time, is that they were tainted. So later that day, Stanley dies from the poisoning, and it will be a couple days later that Stanley's wife, Teresa, will die.
And over the next few days, more people would die from taking extra strength Tylenol in the Chicago area. You had Mary McFarland. She was 35 years old, lived in Elmhurst, Illinois. Paula Prince was also 35. She lived in Chicago. And Mary Reiner was 27 years old. She lived in Winfield. All of this is around the Chicago metro area.
Exactly.
And later, as they're investigating, it's discovered that these Tylenol capsules, and it's important that we say the word capsules, and we'll get into talking about what that is.
Right.
These had all been tainted with cyanide, extremely lethal.
Yeah, I mean, it was potassium cyanide, and as we know, it basically pretty much kills you instantly.
Very quickly.
Yes.
So the police now know the cause of all these deaths, and immediately they start issuing warnings through the media. They even have officers on patrol using bullhorns and loudspeakers.
Driving up and down through the neighborhoods. I mean, they really are just making sure people hear it, and hopefully that, a neighbor tells a neighbor, and that everybody hears, basically toss your Tylenol out.
Yeah, don't use any Tylenol products. Now, today, Gibbs, you wouldn't need to go up and down the street using the bullhorn because one tweet, one Facebook post,
yeah, it's
24-hour news cycle, it would be everywhere. But we are back in the days of limited networks.
Yeah, you're still with the 3 TV stations, and
they had to break in if there was some big news.
Didn't have massive cell phones and things like that yet. So,
but all 3 networks would lead with this story. I mean, it was a huge story.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, it'd be a huge story today as well, but back then it would have been a bigger story.
And Dan Rather was on CBS. You heard him talking, and they really put a human face on this story because they started their coverage talking about little 12-year-old Mary Kellerman. She woke up early that morning with what you would call cold symptoms. And her parents gave her 1 extra strength Tylenol and sent her back to bed.
Yeah. I mean, so as a parent, hearing this, it would be devastating.
Oh, you would be crushed.
Yeah.
I mean, any parent would be crushed to lose a child.
Right.
But to lose a child knowing that you gave them
exactly
the thing that killed them, now, you didn't know it.
It'd be tough to recover from.
It really would.
And here you are thinking you're doing the right thing, right?
Helping them.
Yeah, make you feel better, get you over your fever. I'm going to give you this. And then the next thing you know, you end up.
Because they woke up later on that morning around 7 a.m. to find their daughter in the bathroom on the floor dying.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking, man.
It's soul crushing.
Yeah.
And then, so you had all the three networks, the big three networks. Then you have all the print media that comes out. Time, Newsweek, all the big newspapers are leading off with Tylenol killer, Tylenol scare. I mean, some of these really grabbing headlines.
Oh, yeah. And not to take away from the tragedy of this, but, from a company standpoint, devastating to your business. I mean, what was probably flying off the shelves is now sitting, or actually at this point probably been scrapped and thrown into the dumpster. You're talking about a PR nightmare.
No, it was. And what started in Chicago and was really contained in Chicago, right? These deaths all occurred in Chicago. But as soon as this news comes out, you have people all over the country throwing away their Tylenol.
Poison control, can I help you?
For nearly 1 solid hour, nurses at the Orlando Regional Medical Center comforted fears of local residents. Callers had heard news that cyanide-contaminated Tylenol capsules had killed 6 people in Chicago. Authorities suspect sabotage. Here, nurses report no cyanide cases.
We are letting know what the number is, the lot number, and giving them some symptoms and just basically reassurance.
Across the Orlando area, stores checked their extra-strength Tylenol stock. Many stores removed it, like stores in 31 other states. But here, some stores left the product, pending further word from their corporate headquarters. This bottle of Tylenol came from a box with a manufacturer's code that was different than the code reportedly contaminated. Upon checking, Eyewitness News discovered that no store in the Orlando area carried the contaminated bottles.
None of the merchandise we had in our stores matched the manufacturer code number that was supposed to be contaminated.
So why'd you pull it off the shelf?
Just to be on the safe side until we can find more information out on it.
The Tylenol manufacturer has recalled 93,000 bottles of the suspect lot. They were manufactured in August. Florida did receive some of those bottles. Medical authorities in Chicago are recommending that no one take the Tylenol capsule until authorities obtain more information. In Orange County, Chris Abel, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
And Gibbs, I wanted to play that clip specifically because it was from Orlando.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a long way from Chicago.
Over 1,000 miles away.
And just gives you a sense that same type of news coverage, local news coverage, would have been playing all over the country.
Yeah. I would have thrown mine away.
Oh, there's no doubt.
I wouldn't taken a chance.
And I think most people did. And you heard him say that a lot of stores took it off the shelf.
Yeah.
But even the ones they didn't, there wasn't a hell of a lot of people, I would guess, buying extra strength Tylenol. Or
if
probably
you just,
Tylenol of any kind.
Yeah, I think if you just didn't know, maybe. But otherwise, I don't think you bought any of their product at that time. I wouldn't. Well, I would just stay clear of anything associated around that for a while. And I live on the edge.
Not that far on the edge, though.
No, not that far.
And just to give you a sense of the scope, within this first week of the crisis and the story coming out about these deaths, it was estimated that there were over 125,000 news stories on this Tylenol death case.
So that's big for 1982. That's huge.
And it was estimated that it was the widest U.S. news coverage since the assassination of President John F. Kennedy.
So right there tells you how huge it was then.
That's one of the biggest stories of the century.
Yeah.
So to say that the next thing to come along that was even close to it was this Tylenol?
Big news.
Big news. Now, by October of 1982, investigators knew that the source of the tampering of this extra strength Tylenol could not have come from the manufacturer. And the reason that they knew this was because the tampered bottles, the bottles that they knew had the cyanide in some of the capsules, all came from different pharmaceutical companies who contracted out with Johnson & Johnson, the makers of Tylenol.
Exactly. So they're going to have regional distributors, right, that manufacture the pill based off of the formula, recipe, or whatever that Johnson & Johnson gives them and then ships it out. So,
and I think that was one part. But then what really kind of clued them in was that eventually there would be 7 deaths in total, and they all took place in the Chicago metro area. So that fact alone kind of ruled out tampering at the manufacturing facility.
Yeah, because you would have had clearly other cases, in different cities and metropolitan areas.
Right, because it's not all, from one place, not all going to Chicago.
Exactly.
It would have been shipped out all over the place. So based on that, police start to narrow their search for, a suspect or multiple suspects who most likely bought the bottles in local Chicago retail stores, drugstores, supermarkets, places like that. So their theory was that, the suspect or suspects opened these bottles, separated the capsules, and added the cyanide.
Which would be a tedious process.
It would, but now's a good time to talk about what a capsule was back then.
Right.
Because there's a lot of people that may have never taken them because they don't exist.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the time has changed on the way that these pills are made today.
Yeah, I mean, I should say they don't exist in the way that they did back then. So
Exactly.
Back then, you could buy certain drugs in capsule form. Mm-hmm. And I remember you could actually take the 2 halves of the capsule,
Yep.
pull them apart, and dump out the contents.
Yeah, used to do it all the time.
Yeah, I remember doing it too. But that's what would have made it relatively easy for somebody to introduce a foreign substance like cyanide into the capsule, and you could just put it back together.
Yep.
And nobody would ever know.
Put it back in the bottle, screw the lid back down, and place it on the shelf.
Glue the packaging back together.
The packaging back together.
So that's what they thought happened. And then, the person or persons took the bottles back to the stores and just put them back on the shelves, waiting for some unsuspecting person to come along, buy a package of extra strength Tylenol, take it home, and eventually they're going to take one of these cyanide laced capsules.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, it's such a random way to kill, right? Because you can't predict who your victim's going to be. Because, one, you don't know who's going to come to the store and buy it. And then when they take it home, you don't know who at that home or place of business is going to get that 1 or 2 pills that you put in there.
And actually, I think you make a great point. This is not a way that you would kill a certain person. No way, no how. Just couldn't control it.
No.
Now, if you broke into somebody's house and did that, that's a different story.
Right. You are randomly putting these out just on the shelf at different stores. So you're just wanting to make anybody suffer.
But I think that's important to talk about because as you talk about suspects, right, it's not going to be somebody that has a grudge against these 7 people or any of these 7 people that died. Most likely, this is a person that just wanted people to die, wanted to maybe put fear into the population, or some combination of both. Now, police have all of the bottles that caused the deaths. There's only 5 bottles. Because you talked about it, Gibbs. 3 of these people were killed by capsules that all came from the same bottle.
Exactly.
So the other 4 people were killed by capsules that came from 4 other bottles, making 5 in total. But later on, as the investigation continues, authorities would find 3 more bottles that contained laced capsules.
And who knows how many more there was out there. Some people just disposed of them people bought them and took them home and heard the news and pitched them out before they got to that Russian roulette capsule sitting in that container.
Yeah, because fat chance that there was only, 8 bottles total?
Yeah.
There could have been
much more than that.
There could have been 100. There could have been hundreds, because people were throwing away thousands and thousands of these bottles. And chances are they didn't lace every capsule in a bottle, I wouldn't think. So you have James Burke, who at the time was heading up Johnson & Johnson. Like we mentioned, this huge company. And they have to deal, Gibbs, with this negative media coverage.
Yeah, this is clearly, I mean, we all understand it's bad for the business.
Horrible for the people that died.
Absolutely.
But a crisis also for this company.
Yeah, this is when you gather in your troops, bring in your best people, and sit around and brainstorm on what's the best for the public, what's the best for the company, and what's the best for just the stockholders. I mean, you got to look at all of it, but the forefront should always be what's best for the consumer, and then, especially in this case, and then you move from there.
And they do this by forming a 7-member strategy team, and they really didn't waste any time, Gibbs. They couldn't. They started putting out warnings to, hospitals and all of the different places that would stock this extra strength Tylenol. They also stopped all production and advertising for the product. And on October 5th, 1982, they issued a nationwide recall of Tylenol products. And we're talking about an estimated 31 million bottles that were in circulation at the time, with a retail value of over $100 million.
That's a lot. I mean, this is 1982.
Yep.
$100 million.
What would that be today?
Man, you're talking about $1 billion today, man.
I'll go with it. So not only did they pull their advertising for the product, but they started putting out advertising in the media explicitly telling individuals not to consume any of their products that contained acetaminophen. Because by that point, it had been determined that it was only those type of capsules that had been tampered with. And Johnson & Johnson offered to exchange all Tylenol capsules already purchased by the public for solid tablets. Because at the time, they made a bunch of different types of Tylenol.
Yeah, I think people liked the capsules because it was easier to take.
Easier to swallow.
Easier to swallow, yeah.
I think
a little better on your stomach for some people.
And I think in some cases, maybe you got the medicine quicker that way. I can't remember if that's true or not.
The way it released into your system, maybe? Yeah.
Johnson & Johnson will no longer manufacture or sell any capsule products made directly available to the consumer. While this decision is a financial burden to us, it does not begin to compare to the loss suffered by the family and friends of Diane Ellsroth. On behalf of the entire Johnson & Johnson organization, I have expressed our heartfelt sympathy to Diane's family and loved ones.
So that was James Burke, and you actually hear him in that statement saying, not only did they recall all of these products, they made the decision right then and there. They're not going to even produce any of these products that come in capsule form. And we kind of mentioned it, right? It's why you don't see them in that form today where you can take them apart.
Right. Like you said, we remember what they look like. I think that they were pretty ones that stood out, along with the old contact cold medicine capsules.
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
They had the little tiny round things inside.
Almost look like little pellets or really small, like
pull it
little
apart.
balls.
They all went all over the place. Yeah.
Used to play with them. I can
exactly.
tell.
Yeah.
And there were some consequences of these Tylenol murders. One came in the form of Congress approving what they called the Tylenol bill in May of 1983. And this made the malicious tampering of consumer products a federal offense. So I'm kind of shocked, Gibbs, that it really wasn't before then.
Yeah. I mean, just shows you.
That would have been like a state offense.
Yeah.
But This made it a federal offense,
Right.
I guess.
Which is good.
And in 1989, the FDA set national requirements for all over-the-counter products to be tamper resistant. And again, just goes back to what we're talking about, right? That's why you will not find these type of capsules today. All the pills that we take have to be tamper resistant.
Which is, again, this is
Over the counter. I should say over the counter.
I know that a lot of times we you complain about it. When you get that bottle and you have to first get through the box that is in, then you got to get the lid unwrapped, and then when you get the lid unwrapped, then you got that little covering over the whole,
like a foil that never peels off.
Yeah, it gives you like this little stand-up piece that you're supposed to just easily pull.
It never works.
It never works, and what a pain. But you know what? It's what makes sure to the best of the ability that you don't get poisoned.
I think it's worth it, a little bit of hassle to get into the bottle.
Exactly.
To feel safe about what's in that. Because think about it, Gibbs. How many pills, medicines, different things, other than like what you get from the pharmacy?
Yeah.
I mean, how much stuff do we take? And you buy something, you bring it home, you open it up, you really don't give it a whole lot of thought.
No.
I would think most people don't.
No, I think we're all pretty trusting of the process.
But you're putting something in your body.
Yeah.
And you're trusting that, number one, it contains what it's supposed to contain, and number two, doesn't contain anything that's going to hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not even thinking in your head that somebody would do something like that.
So that's some information around the murders, what happened with Tylenol and the company and capsules and all that stuff. Now we have to take a look at some of the suspects. The investigators first look into a man named James William Lewis. And it's not by accident that they start looking at this guy. Lewis sends a letter to Johnson & Johnson demanding $1 million to stop the cyanide poisoning murders.
When we research this and read about this, you got to think, how stable is this guy? You can't be too stable if you're going to make that type of statement in print and send it to somebody, knowing that, it has your return address on it. It's going to have...
Yeah, this wasn't some encrypted message by Dr. Evil.
Right, exactly.
Asking for $1 million.
Yeah. They can't see you holding your pinky to your mouth, by the way.
I know.
But you're right. This is just a really bizarre thing to do because he's not hiding who he is. So
he's extorting a company, first of all, and then he's basically saying that I'm the one that's responsible for these cyanide poisoning murders, and I'll only stop if you give me $1 million.
At no time did it ever cross his mind that the corporation would just go to the feds and say, look, this guy sent us this letter. I don't know. It just drives me crazy thinking about that stuff.
No, it's very strange. So investigators easily know who this guy is, but they're not able to directly tie him to any of the deaths. I mean, number one, this guy was living in New York with his wife at the time that these deaths occurred. But what they could do is get him for extortion. It's definitely extortion.
Oh, certainly is.
Of a pretty large magnitude. So he ends up getting convicted for this extortion, receives a 20-year sentence, of which he served 13 years.
That's a pretty healthy stint for what he did.
For writing a letter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it was extortion, but you and I have done a lot of cases, Gibbs, where people have killed individuals.
Yeah.
And not done 13 years.
Exactly. Yeah, got away with a whole lot less.
I'm not making light of extortion, but you and I talk about this all the time. How often we see people do unbelievably horrible things and just get like hardly nothing for it. But he gets 20 years, serves 13. He's released in 1995 on parole. My thought, Gibbs, is that there were authorities that believe that Lewis was responsible for the poisonings, but they didn't have strong enough evidence to tie him or to charge him for the tampering. Now, to be fair, James Lewis has always denied any involvement in the actual poisonings, But he did write the extortion letter. And it's not until January of 2009 that state investigators would review the cold case again, and federal agents would search the home of James Lewis. And at this point, he's living in Cambridge, Massachusetts. During the search, they seized items from his home, but the only statement that the FBI made was to say that they didn't really have a statement. They would release something sometime later, but nothing really comes about.
No, they just kind of leave it hanging.
And then the next year in January 2010, both James and his wife submitted DNA samples and fingerprints to authorities. Lewis was quoted as saying, "If the FBI plays it fair, I have nothing to worry about."
James Lewis spent 13 years in prison for sending $1 million extortion letter to Johnson & Johnson, the maker of Tylenol, and law enforcement always considered him the prime suspect in the killings as well, especially since he provided authorities and the I-Team with detailed explanations of how cyanide could end up in pain capsules. So in 2010, a judge ordered Lewis and his wife to comply with grand jury subpoenas requesting DNA. At the time, Lewis seemed optimistic.
Aren't you worried the DNA might link you? Not at all.
And as of tonight, Lewis was correct. Law enforcement sources say there was no DNA match. Cook and DuPage County prosecutors couldn't make a murder case. There was insufficient evidence to charge anyone, said one source, and no new or promising leads.
So you hear it there in the newscast. The DNA goes nowhere. There's no case to be made against Lewis and his wife, for that matter. I don't know why they thought she was involved, but either way, no case to be made against either one of them. Now, the police looked into another man by the name of Roger Arnold. They investigated him, but ultimately cleared him of any involvement in the cyanide poisonings. But Roger Arnold ended up having a nervous breakdown because, he received heavy media attention. And Gibbs, he blamed this media attention not on the authorities that were investigating him. He blamed it on a bar owner by the name of Marty Sinclair. And he did this publicly. And the reason behind this is fascinating because in the summer of 1983, Arnold shot and killed a man named John Stanisha because he mistook this man for Marty Sinclair. This guy was an innocent bystander who got killed. He didn't know Roger Arnold. Roger Arnold didn't know him. He got mistaken for this man named Marty Sinclair and was killed. Arnold was convicted in January of 1984, and he served 15 years of a 30-year sentence for second-degree murder. And he died in June of 2008. So again, this guy killed somebody. He served 15 years, 2 years more than Lewis, who wrote a letter.
Yeah. Isn't that bizarre?
It is a little bizarre when you think about it. And I'm not downplaying extortion. It's a serious crime.
Well, absolutely.
But if you're weighing that in one hand against taking a man's life, it doesn't seem like it adds up to me. Now, to help the case along, the FBI reached out to Chicago Tribune columnist Bob Greene, and they asked Bob Greene to publish the address of the gravesite of the first victim, who was also the youngest victim, and that was 12-year-old Mary Kellerman. And the FBI, in doing this, they also got the family's permission. But this was based on a theory by famed FBI analyst John Douglas. And the theory that Douglas put forth was that the suspect would visit their victims' grave sites.
And this is a pretty big theory that you see in a lot of movies and TV shows. People talk about it all the time, that the killers like to revisit the crime scene. They like to visit the funeral services. That's why a lot of times federal agents or local police will put people undercover at those events, or they'll videotape it and to play back later to see if they notice anything different.
Well, you mentioned movies and TV shows, but real life as well, right? We covered a lot of cases where this exact same circumstance happens. They have a suspect, and They have a theory that he's going to revisit the crime scene, the gravesite, the funeral, whatever whatever it may be. And so they're staking it out. And this is what the police do. They keep the gravesite under 24-hour surveillance for several months, but nothing really comes of it. There's no suspect that all of a sudden shows up. Now, the next person that authorities look at is a woman by the name of Lori Dan. And Lori Dan poisoned and shot 7 people, killing one in a rampage that occurred in Winnetka, Illinois in May of 1988. And this story of Lori Dan is fascinating, Gibbs, because she used diluted arsenic that she had stolen, and she put this in some rice cereal snacks, into some juice boxes, and then she started mailing this stuff out to people. She mailed it to former acquaintances, ex-babysitting clients. So I guess she had been a babysitter at one point. She mailed some to her psychiatrist. And she didn't just mail some of this stuff. One morning, she actually personally delivered some of these snacks and juice boxes that she knew was tainted with poison to some of these different people. And what is so strange about this, Gibbs, is some of these people had not seen her for many years. So very strange for her to just one day show up at their door with a bunch of rice cereal snacks and juice boxes. Now, luckily, very few of these tainted things were actually consumed. The juice boxes were leaking, and some of the things the treats that she made, they didn't taste good at all.
She did a bad job at trying to pull this off.
Yeah. And we talked about the fact that she used diluted arsenic, and apparently it was very highly diluted. So nobody really became seriously ill from the poisoning. But this Lori Dan, she doesn't stop here. I mean, she does a lot of strange things. She enters a school, tries to detonate a firebomb in the hallway of this school. It must not have been a whole lot because it's discovered by students. A teacher comes out and pretty quickly puts it out with a fire extinguisher. She drove to a local daycare where her ex-sister-in-law's daughter went. She tried to enter that building with a can of gasoline, but was stopped by staff. So she has grudges, apparently, Gib, against a bunch of people. And she's trying to
wipe them all out.
She's trying to exact revenge on all these people maybe that she thought had done her wrong, or, something along those lines.
It always amazes me, though. Here we're talking about the Tylenol murders, and you have all these bad people, man.
Right. Kind of this tentacle leads off into this really horrible woman. This woman goes into another elementary school. She's carrying 3 handguns. She follows a boy from the hallway into the boy's bathroom, and she shoots this kid with a 22. Then she entered a 2nd grade classroom, and she ended up shooting 5 children and killed an 8-year-old before taking off in her car.
I mean, you got to think about that. What kind of individual are you if you can just shoot kids?
Oh, there was something seriously wrong with this woman. I mean, it's no doubt that she hit investigators' radar, right? Number one, she was trying to poison a whole bunch of people. So that had to set off alarm bells that maybe possibly she could have had something to do with this Tylenol poisonings. But ultimately, police are on to her for what she's done, not for the Tylenol thing, but she's shot up a school and killed a child. They surround her. She's barricaded herself in a bedroom. And by the time they get in, she shot herself in the mouth. They find her body. And ultimately, they're going to decide that she didn't have anything to do with these Tylenol poisonings. They couldn't find any direct connection. But like you said, Gibbs, we're talking about this story. Now, all of a sudden, you veer off into this very strange woman.
Yeah.
Who they looked at because She was doing a lot of crazy shit herself here.
Yeah, she's bizarre. Very bizarre.
And then you go from one bizarre person to another, because in 2011, the FBI requested a DNA sample from none other than Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. And we haven't done Ted yet on True Crime All the Time, but we will. Now, he, of course, claimed that he never had any potassium cyanide in his possession, but his parents lived in a Chicago suburb, and Ted stayed there when he visited back during the time that these Tylenol poisonings occurred. So they thought it was possible that he could have been involved.
And I can see that. I can see why they thought that.
Well, number one, Ted Kaczynski was unbelievably intelligent. So we know some of the things that he did in the crimes that he was convicted for. I don't think it would have been too hard for Ted Kaczynski to figure out a way to lace some Tylenol capsules. I don't really think, Gibbs, it was that hard for anybody to figure out.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But nothing comes from this either, right? They have the DNA sample. Nothing comes from it. They're not able to tie him to these poisonings in any way. But in that same year of 2011, a former employee of Johnson & Johnson by the name of Scott Bartz would come out and allege that the poisoned Tylenol had actually been tampered with somewhere along the distribution lines in Tylenol's supply chain. So he's alleging that the tampering did not happen at these different retail locations as authorities had said. So then, Gibbs, we have to talk about the copycat poisonings, because there were hundreds of these.
Yeah, there was. There's over 200 of them.
And some of them involved other Tylenol products, but a whole bunch of other types of medications and products as well. And this took place all over the U.S. immediately following the Chicago deaths. And then in 1986, there would be 3 highly publicized deaths that happened in the U.S. A woman in Yonkers, New York, died after taking an extra strength Tylenol gel capsule that was laced with cyanide. Then in Washington State, some Excedrin capsules were tampered with, laced with cyanide, and killed a woman named Susan Snow and a man named Bruce Nickel. Now, they would catch the person that tampered with these Excedrin capsules. It turned out to be Bruce's wife, Stella.
See, another little spin-off of murder.
Tentacle. Another little tentacle.
Yeah, another one out there, man.
So obviously she wasn't happy with whatever was going on, and she thought the way to solve this problem was to copycat and tamper with these Excedrin capsules. Also in 1986, Procter & Gamble had a product named Encaprin that they had to recall because of some hoaxes about their product being spiked or laced. And these hoaxes caused massive sale drops, as you can imagine. So Gibbs, I think in wrapping this case up, we have to come full circle and go back to Johnson & Johnson. You know, the way that they handled this case, I believe, was seen as pretty positive, the steps that they took after it first happened.
Yeah, I think based off of even just listen to the CEO on that one clip, they handled it very well and took the right direction.
No, but I think they were generally viewed as doing the right thing in the wake of this tragic incident. But they took a beating as a company. You know, this Tylenol scare, it caused the Tylenol market share to drop from 35% to 8%. But it rebounds, right? In less than a year, it starts to rebound. And a lot of that was attributed to the way that the company handled things. By November of that year, they had reintroduced new capsules in better packaging. The capsules were made differently. They were doing some heavy price promotions. And it wasn't very long, Gibbs, that they were back to being the number one over-the-counter pain reliever in the United States. It's kind of miraculous if you think about it, that they were able to turn that around in the wake of what happened, in the wake of people thinking that I would never buy this product again.
Right.
And somehow they were able to, do the right thing and also
salvage the brand.
Yeah, and salvage the brand.
Yeah.
Because we know it today, right? It didn't go away like some of the other ones we talked about.
No, it's still around. It's
still huge.
Yeah. I mean, when you think of needing something for your sick kid, you think of Tylenol. Somebody has a fever, you're giving them Tylenol.
And you can actually see it online in different places where at business schools across the country, they use this Tylenol situation, I'll call it, as like a case to study in business schools of how to handle things the right way. All right, Gibbs, that is it. That's the case of the Tylenol murders. Tragic that 7 people lost their lives taking a product that was intended to help them because some individual out there, and we may never know who it is, thought it was, I don't know what they thought it was.
I'm trying to think, what would the reason be?
They thought it was funny?
Fun? Were they did they hate Johnson & Johnson and wanted to take them down?
Or did they just want to see what would happen?
Or just that?
Or cause mayhem? I really don't know.
Yeah, it's a mystery.
But it's horrible.
Oh, it's devastating. I mean, innocent people lost their life because somebody played a random game.
That's almost, and I hate to call it that, but that's really what it seems like. They were playing a game. You said Russian roulette.
Yeah.
It's almost like they were playing Russian roulette with other people's lives.
Exactly what it was. Because again, they could care less about who it killed because, right, randomly placed pills, randomly placed in stores. They didn't know who was going to come in and buy it and who was going to take that fatal dose. They just wanted somebody to take it and die so that, that's why, some reason inside of me, I think it has something to do with wanting to see the Tylenol brand die or such a big negative impact on Johnson & Johnson. Because if you just didn't care who took it but wanted them to die, if it was a kid or adult or whoever, so the person you're trying to hurt is the person that makes the product.
Either that or it was just coincidence that they happened to choose Tylenol, right? Maybe they could have chosen another brand. They could have mixed up brands. But, I mean, what you're saying is, it's a pretty good conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, yeah.
But that's it. That's the case of the Tylenol murders. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to listen to those?
Good morning, guys. My name is Sandy, and I'm from Michigan. I'm actually just a couple hours away from you guys. And first time calling, I just wanted to say that I just got finished with the yogurt shop murders, and I wanted to say that I think it was really, really awesome and brave of you guys to really go into detail. I could tell this was a tough one for you guys, especially Gibby, which I totally understand. Thanks for not shying away from some of the more sensitive content, and thanks for being really great in how you talk about stuff like that too. So I know you guys like to know what people get up to while listening to your podcast. 2 of my favorite times to listen to you guys are when I go to bed. I know that's a popular one. And actually in the morning before I get up for work, I always like to snuggle with my dogs for a few minutes, and you guys are pretty much on every morning. So definitely a great way to start and end my day. So thanks so much for listening, and keep your own time ticking. #Team Gibby.
#Team Gibby.
Wow, I love that.
What's really cool about that, Gibbs, is we're there for you when you get up.
That's right.
We're there for you when you go to bed.
We're always there for you.
And we're there for you any time in between.
Just plug in and listen to us in forward or reverse.
Forward or reverse.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate the voicemail.
Hi, guys. This is Tina Cervantes, and I'm calling from Pixley, California, currently where it's raining. I'm on my way home from San Diego and Los Angeles for work. You guys have gotten me with the true crime all the time unsolved, You have gotten me all the way from Stockton, California to dang near Mexico and all the way back up, so I'm catching up on all of the podcasts. Haven't listened to last week's True Crime All the Time episode because my husband and I listened to it together, and then we talk about it during the week. Also want to give a shout out to my friend Eric Morales, who got us into True Crime All the Time. He's a huge fan. We love the interaction on Facebook and all of the social media interaction. Keep up the great work, guys. We love it. We love you guys. We love the interaction. We love the jiving back and forth between the two of you. We're getting other people into the podcast. So keep up the great work and keep your own time ticking.
Wow. Well, thank you, Tina, and let Eric know we appreciate it as well.
And another couple that listens together, and then they talk about it later.
And discuss the case.
It's so cool.
I think it's really cool, actually. Over dinner, Gibby said this, Mike said that. Well, you know Gibby was right, not Mike. Taking each other's side,
That's funny.
Yeah.
But cool
It is
voicemail.
cool. It's really cool. And the fact that she's driving these long distances with listening to Unsolved.
And you're right there in the car with her,
It's like we're right with her. We're like, hey, keep driving.
And
Don't nod off.
And very cool of Eric to turn other people onto the podcast. And we know a lot of people do that, and we really appreciate it. It goes a long way.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Kristen. I'm calling from right outside Philadelphia. I actually live in Glenside, and I just listened to The Boy in the Box episode, and I actually commented on Facebook because I was really proud of Mike. Did for rewrite and Susquehanna you kept doing, which was pretty funny, but, around here it's Susquehanna. It was pretty how you did it. Hana, very nice. Anyway, so it got me thinking there was a case you guys might be interested in doing. Don't quote me on all these things. I believe it was St. Cecilia, which is a church right in Fox Chase, off Common, like right at 5 Points. And there was a murder there that took place in the 90s, I believe, late 90s. Eddie Pollock. He was murdered on the church steps. So it's a sad, twisted, weird story that ends up changing the way that we live in this world. So I thought it was kind of interesting. I know you guys have done the one on Megan's Law and some awesome life, cases that have actually changed the way that we operate in our world. So I just wanted to let you guys know about this Eddie Pollock case. So that's all. Just want to let you guys know. Keep your own time ticking. Keep it up. I love listening to you guys. Your banter is awesome. Thank you. Let's split.
So, Gibbs, I got to say, there was a lot of editing in that voicemail.
Okay.
And she's probably going to hear it saying, and think, oh my gosh, he cut me out. That voicemail was almost like a mini episode of Unsolved.
Oh, what?
She went into that Eddie Pollock case.
Oh, did she really?
In pretty good detail. It was just so long for a voicemail, I had to cut it down.
We'll have to reach out to her to help us do the research and putting it together, maybe.
I mean, she really went into some good detail, so we appreciate that, and we'll look into that case.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Tisha calling from sunny California. Just wanted to say I love your podcast. I listen to it literally every day, so you guys need to keep pumping out the episodes because I'm starting to run out. But I did want to recommend the case of Dennis Nielsen from the UK. He's pretty disturbing and I think it's right up our alley. So probably a good one to cover when you guys have time. But again, just wanted to say thank you for everything you guys do. I love listening to it, and have a fantastic day and keep your own time ticking. Bye.
Keep your own time ticking.
Keep it ticking.
Now, I will say we have had a lot of requests for Dennis Nielsen.
Yeah, I've heard that name before.
We're going to have to move. He's on the list. We're going to have to move him up because there's a lot of people that want to hear us do that case.
Yeah, I think we're about to that point. We're going to have to go overseas again.
Yeah, we haven't been over in a while. And we have to go to Australia. We keep saying that.
Yeah, I need to see my Aussie mates.
Although you're literally more suited to do a British story.
Until I get there and I'll actually sound like I'll do a good Australian voice.
When you're trying to do your British
Yeah.
one?
Hey guys, it's Karan calling all the way from Orlando, Florida. I love your podcast. I do. I'm sitting here binge listening, and I gotta say, you guys just keep my attention all throughout the day. I love it. I'm looking forward to the next episode. And Gibby, buckle up, be safe, and keep your own time ticket. Love you guys. All right, bye.
can't say how many people tell you to buckle up.
Buckle up, man.
That one episode where you talked about seatbelts.
I know it. Sometimes I should just keep things to myself.
Sometimes you should. Everybody wants you to buckle up because that's a way to keep your own time ticking.
As long as my insurance guy don't hear it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. We appreciate the voicemails. We appreciate everyone downloading and listening and social media. And we just love all you guys. So that's another episode of True Crime All the Time. And so for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.